رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي رب زدني علما اللهم فقهنا في الدين آمين يا رب العالمين. Assalamualaikum, and thank you for joining us today for Rahma's English course. Alhamdulillah, it is so good to see you all here. Inshallah, I hope that all of you are doing well and that you all have had a wonderful week. So inshallah, today we are going to start with ayah number 128, and the lesson is going to be until ayah number 134. And we're just going to start first with the recitation of these verses. If y'all would like to open up your Qur'ans and follow along as we recite, starting from ayah number 128. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وإن امرأة خافت من بعلها نشوزا أو إعراضا فلا جناح عليهما أن يصلحا بينهما صلحا والصلح خير وأحضرت الأنفس الشح وإن تحسنوا وتتقوا فإن الله كان بما تعملون خبيرا ولن تستطيعوا أن تعدلوا بين النساء ولو حرصتم فلا تميلوا كل الميل فتذروها كالمعلقة وإن تصلحوا وتتقوا فإن الله كان غفورا رحيما وإن يتفرقا يغن الله كلا من سعته وكان الله واسعا حكيما ولله ما في السماوات وما في الأرض ولقد وصينا الذين أوتوا الكتاب من قبلكم وإياكم أن اتقوا الله وإن تكفروا فإن لله ما في السماوات وما في الأرض وكان الله غنيا حميدا ولله ما في السماوات وما في الأرض وكفى بالله وكيلا إن يشأ يذهبكم أيها الناس ويأت بآخرين وكان الله على ذلك قديرا من كان يريد ثواب الدنيا فعند الله ثواب الدنيا والآخرة وكان الله سميعا بصيرا. So inshallah, that is the lesson, ayah number 128 to ayah number 134. Inshallah, for our theory, we are continuing the topic that we started, the topic of nabr. Nabr, as we learned, is the accent or the emphasis of a letter or a part of a word. Usually in the Quran, nabr is done by raising the voice, by applying a little bit of extra pressure. And the point of this is to bring attention to that specific letter. Oftentimes, because there is something in the writing of the Quran that you are not able to convey through recitation. So we learned that this is the purpose of tajweed, that we want that for every single person who is reading the Quran, they are able to convey the letters exactly the way that they are written in the Quran. So that someone who is listening to the Quran should be able to visualize the letters exactly as they have been written. So for nabr, sometimes in the Quran, there are things that are written in the script of the Quran, but you are not able to audibly make them shown to the listener that here something used to be here, or in the writing of the Quran there is something here that I'm not able to convey through recitation. When we look at the examples, you'll see a little bit more about what this means, as we learned the first case of nabar as well. So the first case of nabar, and we learned that there are a total of 5 cases of nabar, 5 circumstances of nabar. And the first circumstance that we did in the last class was stopping on a letter that has shadda. So this was the first case of nabar. So when we have a letter with shadda at the end of a word and we stop on this word, meaning that the letter with shadda is the letter that we are stopping on, we were told that we have to raise the voice a little and apply a little bit of extra pressure, meaning apply a little bit of nabar, in order to show the listener that there used to be a shadda here. Now, when you are reciting and you stop on a letter, you are going to give it sukoon. So for you to give a letter sukoon, you are going to take away the harakat. You are taking away fatha, dhamma, and kasra and applying a sukoon. So now you have to make sure the listener knows that instead of it just being a normal fatha, dhamma, kasra, that it was actually a shadda. Because instead of dropping one thing and replacing it with another, instead of dropping a fatha, dhamma, kasra and replacing it with a sukoon, you are replacing one, but you are dropping the second letter that comes with shadda. And in the Quran, we're not allowed to drop letters like this without any reason. So if we do stop on this letter, we have to apply extra nabar in order to substitute that extra shadda. And for shadda, we learned it's as if you are reading the letter twice. The first letter with sukoon and the second letter with a haraka. So for this one, you can replace one sukoon with the other sukoon, but you are not allowed to completely drop that haraka without replacing it with something else. And that is why we have nabar here. So for example, if we have the word mustamirrun, and I stop here, I'm going to say mustamir. Raise the voice a little bit, apply a little bit of extra pressure. Al-hayyu, if we stop here, al-hayy. Apply a little bit of extra pressure, raise the voice a little bit. So now you can see that there is a little bit of difference when we are reciting. If I say mustamir here, I am not applying any nabar. Mustamir. I'm applying a little bit of nabar, the voice is raised a little, there is a little bit more pressure. And in this case, this is how we are showing that there used to be a shadda here. So, this is basically the rule of the first case of nabar, stopping on a letter that has shadda. And the purpose of nabar here is to show the listener that there used to be a shadda here, and that I'm raising the voice in order to signify that there used to be a shadda. So there is an exception to the nabar rule, and this is in the case of noon and mim with a shadda on them. So in this case, they do have complete ghunna, so you do not have to apply extra nabar. Why? Because the ghunna already lets the listener know that there are 2 letters. So anytime we have a noon or a mim with a shadda, we learned this when we were doing the rules of ghunna, when we did akmal ghunna as well, that we stop on them for a little bit longer. And this elongation of the ghunna, or the completion of the ghunna, also allows the listener to know that there used to be a shadda here, or that there is a shadda here. So in that case, we don't even have to apply nabar. Why? Because it's already conveyed. So for example, if we have the word lakini, noon has a kasra, and I stop, I say lakin. Now if we have walakinna, and I stop, walakin. Now I apply akmal ghunna on this, lakin, walakin. So you do hear that difference, and you can clearly tell, even if you do not have the word in front of you, that lakin is just a normal noon with a haraka. Lakin, this one is a noon that has a shadda. So even through my voice, you can tell what the letter looks like and whether it has a shadda or not. Same thing with the word kana. So kana is different than stopping on the word jannun. So if I stop at kana, gan. Jannun, if I stop, jan. So you can hear that on that noon, I'm stopping for a lot longer. So there is a med on the alif. Inshallah, I'll read it without the med so that you can hear the difference in the noon. Gan, jan. So So now you can hear on the noon with a shadda, I was stopping on it for a little bit longer, a little bit more pressure, and this is how we are going to convey that there used to be a shadda here. So in the case of mim and noon ghunna, you are not applying any nabr, instead you are just going to apply a little bit of akmal ghunna, but for the rest of the letters you are going to apply a little bit of extra pronunciation or a little bit of extra pressure on these letters. So that was the first case of nabr. Inshallah, now we're going to move on to the second case of nabr. So the second case occurs when pronouncing wow that has a shadda and the letter before it has a dhamma or a fatha. Okay, I'll show you an example so you know what I mean. In the word al-quwwata. So here we have a wow with a shadda. Okay, and here the letter before has a dhamma. So we're looking for wow with a shadda, and the letter before has to have dhamma or fatha. So here in al-quwwata, in the word qawwamuna, both of these cases we have shadda with a fatha, or shadda with a kasra. So that is what we're looking for, and this is going to be the first case of nabr. The second case is going to be when pronouncing the ya that has a shadda, and the letter before it has a kasra or a fatha. So for example, the word ghayyan, sharqiyatin. So in both of these cases, you hear that there is a wow or a ya with a shadda, and the letter before is fatha or kasra. Okay, so wow or ya with a shadda, and for wow the letter before has dhamma or fatha, and for ya the letter before has kasra or fatha. So for both of these cases you are picking the matching haraka. So for dhamma the matching haraka is, or the matching letter is wow, and for kasra the matching letter is ya. And then also additionally fatha is included in this rule. So this is how you're going to remember it. Wow and dhamma go together, kasra and ya go together, and then fatha is just included within both of these. So when we are reciting these, we are going to give a little bit of med here. And the reason of this med is again to show that there is a shadda here. So I will say al-quwwata, qawwamuna. Now you can hear I am applying a little bit of extra pressure on the shadda letters. Ghayyan, sharqiyatin. So apply a little bit of extra pressure on these letters. Now, when we don't apply pressure, it's going to sound like al-quwwata, qawwamuna. Now, you don't hear that shadda at all. I could be saying wow with a fatha, qawwamuna, qawwamuna. Now, you don't hear that shadda at all. Qawwamuna. Now you clearly hear that there is a shadda. Also in the word, if we have sharqiyatin, sharqiyatin, sharqiyatin. Now here as well, you don't really hear that shadda. So I'm going to give it a little bit of extra to make sure that that shadda is very, very audible to everyone. Sharqiyatin. And then if we have the word ghayyan, here also we're going to apply a little bit of more shadda. Ghayyan. Raise the voice a little bit, give a little bit of additional nabr here. So also this is due to the possibility of incorrectly reciting a mad or lengthening the lean. So here in this case as well, we want to make sure that that lean is only 2 counts and not any longer than that. So this is also a reason some scholars say that nabr is applied here. So this was the second case on nabr. So if we have wow or ya and it has a shadda, and for wow the letter before is dhamma or fatha, and for ya the letter before is a kasra or fatha, then we are going to apply nabr here. And the reason for applying nabr is so that we are not dropping that shadda, so that shadda becomes very audible. also so that we're not completely lengthening the leen more than it should be lengthened. So this is the second case of nabr, and again, this is to show the listener that there is something here that may not be fully conveyed with recitation. Inshallah, we're going to stop here for analysis, and then inshallah in the next class we will come back to this one. We'll do a little bit more revision before we move on to the third case of nabr. So inshallah, let's go ahead and move on to ayah number 128 for the analysis, starting with the ayah وَإِنِ امْرَأَةٌ خَافَتْ. So here, إِنِ امْرَأَةٌ, ra is going to be heavy. خَافَتْ, kha is heavy. مِن بَعْلِهَا, this is إقلاب. نُشُوزًا, this is إظهار. أو إعراضًا, عين is going to be توسط, ra is heavy, ضاد is heavy. فَلَا جُنَاحَ عَلَيْهِمَا. So in this ayah, we're just going to be very cautious of our ha and ha. Now, ha and ha, both of them come together in this ayah, so we want to make sure that whenever we see the letter, we are reading it from its correct makhraj. So here, junaha, this is going to be from the middle of the throat. Alayhima, this is from the lower throat. An yusliha, this is from the middle throat. Baynahuma, this is from the lower throat. Sulha, this is from the middle throat. Wasulhu, this is from the middle throat. Wa uhdirat, from the middle throat. Al-anfusu shuh, this is from the middle of the throat. Wa in tuhsinu, this is from the middle of the throat. So in all of these, ha, make sure you are reading them from the middle of the throat. Ha is going to be read closer to the chest. And ha, we learned that if you put your hand in front of your mouth, you should be able to feel a little bit of warm air. And this is the correct mechanism for the letter ha. So if you are not feeling that your ha is coming from the correct place, just put your hand in front of your mouth and blow out some warm air, and that is going to teach you the mechanism for this letter. So again, just make sure for all of these you are reading them from the correct makhraj. Junaha alayhima an yusliha baynahuma sulha والصلح خير وأحضرت الأنفس الشح. So in all of these, just make sure that it is coming from the middle of the throat. وَإِن تُحْسِنُوا وَتَتَّقُوا فَإِنَّ اللَّهَ, name of Allah here is going to be heavy. كَانَ بِمَا تَعْمَلُونَ خَبِيرًا, kha is going to be heavy, ra in this case is heavy. وَلَا تَسْتَطِيعُوا, this is a 4-count med. أَن تَعْدِلُوا بَيْنَ النِّسَاء, this is a 4-count med. وَلَوْ حَرَصْتُمْ, ha again from the middle of the throat. Ra is heavy, sad is heavy. فَلَا تَمِيلُوا كُلَّ الْمَيْلِ فَتَذَرُوهَا, ra is going to be heavy. كَالْمُعَلَّقَةِ. Here we have a ta marbuta, and we end here on the letter ha. So make sure that you do give it a little bit of air so that it is not completely dropped. Instead of saying كَالْمُعَلَّقَةِ, I'm going to say كَالْمُعَلَّقَةِ. Give it a little bit of air to make sure that it is very audible. وَإِن تُصْلِحُوا, صاد is heavy. وَتَتَّقُوا فَإِنَّ اللَّهَ, name of Allah here is heavy. كَانَ غَفُورًا رَحِيمًا, ra is going to be heavy, ghain is heavy, and then we end here on a 2-count mad al-iwad. وَإِن يَتَفَرَّقَا, ra is heavy. يُغْنِ اللَّهُ, name of Allah here is light. كُلًّا مِن سَعَتِهِ, again we end here on a ha with a sukoon, so make sure that you are giving it a little bit of air closer to the chest. Sadia. So make sure that it does have a little bit of air. We're not going to drop it and say Sadia. Now here you don't hear that ha at all, so make sure that it is very audible. وَكَانَ اللَّهُ, name of Allah here is going to be heavy. وَاسِعًا حَكِيمًا, ha from the middle of the throat. Ma is going to be a 2-count mad al-iwad. وَلِلَّهِ, name of Allah here is light. مَا فِي السَّمَاوَاتِ وَمَا فِي الْأَرْضِ, ra and dad is heavy. وَلَقَدْ, qaf is heavy. وَالصَّيْنَا, sad is heavy. وَالصَّيْنَا الَّذِينَ أُوتُوا الْكِتَابَ مِنْ قَبْلِكُمْ, qaf is heavy. Ba is qalqala. وَإِيَّاكُمْ. Now here we see that there is a ya with a shadda. The letter before is kasra. So this is a case of nabr as we just learned today. So I am going to give it a little bit of more pressure on the shadda. وَإِيَّاكُمْ, وَإِيَّاكُمْ. Give it a little bit of pressure. We are not saying وَإِيَّاكُمْ or وَإِيَّاكُمْ. So here you don't hear that shadda at all. It is a very subtle difference, but it is a difference. So we are going to make sure to give it a little bit more pressure. While we are giving the ya pressure, we are also making sure that we're not giving it too much pressure. Otherwise, it can start to turn into a jim. So this is a very common mistake. People say, وَإِيَّاكُمْ. Now this sounds like a jim. I am applying too much pressure, and we're not going to do that. وَإِيَّاكُمْ. make sure that you apply just enough pressure that it stays a ya. Do not say wa iyyakum. Now this is turning into a jim and we want to avoid that. So here there is a little bit of nabr as we learned today. Wa iyyakum. Anittaqullah, name of Allah here is heavy. وَإِن تَكْفُرُوا فَإِنَّ لِلَّهِ, name of Allah is light. مَا فِي السَّمَاوَاتِ وَمَا فِي الْأَرْضِ وَكَانَ اللَّهُ, name of Allah is heavy. غَنِيًّا حَمِيدًا, and here on a 2-count مد العوض. وَلِلَّهِ, name of Allah is light. مَا فِي السَّمَاوَاتِ وَمَا فِي الْأَرْضِ وَكَفَى بِاللَّهِ, name of Allah is light. وَكِيلًا. إِن يَشَأْ يُذْهِبَكُم, Hamza here is going to have a little bit of shiddah, so make sure that there is a jerking motion in the throat. إِن يَشَأْ يُذْهِبَكُم أَيُّهَا النَّاسِ وَيَأْتِ بِآخَرِينَ. Ha is going to be heavy, Ra is light. وَكَانَ اللَّهُ, name of Allah is heavy. عَلَى ذَلِكَ قَدِيرًا, we end here on a 2-count mad, and this Ra is heavy. مَنْ كَانَ يُرِيدُ ثَوَابَ الدُّنْيَا فَعِنْدَ اللَّهِ, name of Allah is going to be heavy. ثَوَابُ الدُّنْيَا وَالْآخِرَةِ, Ra is going to be heavy. We end here on that marbuta, so make sure you do give it a little bit more air closer to the chest. وَالْآخِرَةِ. وَكَانَ اللَّهُ, name of Allah is heavy. سَمِيعًا بَصِيرًا, Sad is going to be heavy. Ra in this case is heavy, and we end here on a 2-count مد العوض. So inshallah, that is our lesson for this week, from ayah number 128 to ayah number 134. Inshallah, we will end here today for the theory portion of our class. Jazakallahu khairan kathiran, everyone. Inshallah, I will see you all next week. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdik, nashhadu an la ilaha illa ant, nastaghfiruka wa natubu ilayk. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuhu.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuhu. Nahmaduhu wa nusalli ala rasulihil kareem, amma ba'd. Fa'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wahlul 'uqdatam min lisani yafqahu qawli. Wa rabbi zidna ilma. Allahumma faqihna fid din. Allahumma inna nas'aluka ilman nafi'an wa amalan mutaqabbalan wa rizqan tayyiba. Allahumma anfa'na bima 'allamtana wa 'allimna ma yanfa'una wa zidna ilma. Aameen. Ya Rabbal Alameen. Inshallah, we're going to cover ayat 128 to 134 of Surah An-Nisaa today. We'll start with the word meanings, inshallah, beginning with ayah number 128. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Wa, and, in, if, imra'atun, a woman, khafat, she feared. Khawf is the root word here, and that means fear. And khafat, the ta at the end refers to the woman, so we know this is the female tense that's being used. So khafat, she feared, min, from, ba'aliha, ba'ali, husband, ha, her, nushuzan, any ill treatment or aversion, or i'radan, indifference. Fala, fa, then, la, not, junaha, any blame or any sin, alayhima, alay, upon, hima, them too. So huma or hima, this pronoun here is used as the dual tense, as we already covered much earlier. Besides singular and plural, in Arabic we also have the dual tense. So that applies to two people. So alayhima, upon both of them, an, that, yusliha, islah is the root word here, and that means reconciliation. The ya in the beginning tells us this word is in the third person, and the alif at the end of the ha, it's not just yusliha, it's yusliha. So the ha alif, the alif at the end, means this word refers to two people. And so we are talking about two people here. And this is what happens whenever we see a verb and it's talking about two people. It ends with the extra alif. So yusliha, they both reconcile. Bainahuma, baina, between, huma, them two, or both of them. Sulha, sulha means reconciliation or compromise. Wasulhu, wa means and, as-sulhu, the reconciliation or compromise, khair is better. Wa and uhdirat was presented. Hadara means to be present, and uhdirat is passive. It's in the passive tense, and the ta at the end refers to what's coming up next, and that's anfus, the souls. Okay, so uhdirat and was presented or is presented. Al-anfus, al means ta, and nafs means soul. And this word is plural for the word nafs. So anfus, souls. Ashuh, the greed or stinginess. So uhdiratil anfus, and was presented or is presented in the souls. Ashuh, the stinginess or greed. Wa, and in, if, tuhsinu, you do ihsan. Ihsan is a root word. We already covered this word, and that means to do utmost good, to do more than you are required to do. Okay, more than just doing justice, to do utmost good. So ta in the beginning means you, waw alif in the end makes this word plural. So wa in tuhsinu, and if you all do ihsan, or you all do utmost good, wa tattaqu, wa and tattaqu, the root word here is taqwa, which means Allah consciousness. Okay, and ta in the beginning means you. The waw alif in the end means this word is plural. So watattaqu, and you all adopt Allah consciousness, or you all safeguard yourselves. Fa, then, inna, indeed, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, kana, he is, bima, be with, ma, whatever, ta'maluna, you all do. Ain, mim, lam, amal is the root word, and that means an action, to do something. Ta in the beginning means you, and una ending makes this word plural. So ta'maluna, you all do. Khabira, one always all aware. So khabira is one of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's attributes, and it means all acquainted, all aware. Wa, and lan, will never. Tastati'u, istata' is the root word, and that means to be capable of doing something, the ability to do something. So ta in the beginning means you. Waw alif in the end tells us this word is plural. So tastati'u, you all are capable. An, that, ta'dilu. This word comes from adal, ain, dal, lam, and that means justice. So ta means in the beginning means you. Waw alif in the end tells us this word is plural. Ta'dilu, you all are just. So walan, and will never, tastati'u, you all be able, or you all be capable. An, that, ta'dilu, you all maintain justice. Baina, between, an-nisa'i, the women, walau, wa, even if, wa means even, and lo, if, harastum, haras, desire, eagerly, to want to do something. So haras, eagerly desire, tum, all of you. Fala, fa then, la, do not. Tamilu, this word comes from the word mailan, which means inclination. Okay, so ta in the beginning means you. Waw alif in the end tells us this word is plural. So tamilu, you all incline. Kulla, all or whole. Al-maila, the inclination. Fatadaruha, fa, prefix here meaning so or then again. Tadaru, ta in the beginning means you, and waw, this word tadaru ending with a waw means this is plural. So fatadaru, so you all leave. Ha, her, meaning the woman. Ka, like, al-mu'allaqa, Al means the mu'allaqa, one suspended. Wa and in, if. Tuslihu, this word comes from islah, which means reconciliation. Ta in the beginning means you. Vaw alif in the end makes this word plural. So tuslihu, you all reconcile, or you all compromise. Wa and tattaqu, you all adopt Allah consciousness, or safeguard yourselves. Fa inna, fa, then inna, indeed, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, kana, he is ghafuran, all forgiving, rahima, always all merciful. These are two attributes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that we see in the Quran very often. So ghafura, all forgiving, and rahiman, one always all merciful. Wa and in, if, yatafarraqa, they both separate. So farraq means to part, and yatafarraq begins with a ya. So we know it's in the third person, but we notice here that the word yatafarraqa ends with an alif at the end, right? After the fatha, we see an alif. So it's in the dual tense. It applies to two people. So yatafarraqa means they both separate. Yugni, he will enrich. Allahu, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, kullan, all, min, from, sa'atihi, sa'ati, abundance, or bounty, ampleness, he, his. Wa and, kana, he is, Allahu, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, wasi'an, one of all abundance, or bounty. This is an attribute of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and so is the next one, hakiman, one always all wise. This comes from the word hikmah, which means wisdom, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is always all wise. Wa and lillahi, li, for, only for, Allahi, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, ma, whatever, fi, in, as-samawati. This is plural for as-samai, as-samawati, the skies, or the heavens. Wa and ma, whatever, fi, in, al-ard, the earth. Walaqad, wa and la, surely, qad, in fact. Wasayna, wasa means to enjoin or to order, okay, decree. So wasayna, nun alif in the end means we, so wasayna, we enjoined or we decreed. Alladhina, those who, utu, they were given, al-kitaba, the book, min, from, qablikum, qabli, before, kum, all of you, wa and, iyakum, you all too. Kum means you, so iyakum, you all too. An, that, ittaqu, this is a command. Ittaqu, you all adopt taqwa. You all safeguard yourselves, adopt Allah consciousness. Allah, of Allah. Wa and in, if, takfuru. This word comes from kufr. Kufr means disbelief, okay, or to deny the truth. Da in the beginning means you. Vaw alif in the end makes this word plural, and this is an action. Okay, this is a verb. Takfuru, you all disbelieve. Fa inna, fa then, inna, indeed, lillahi, li, for. And since the li comes before the word Allah, there's more emphasis, more depth in this word. So lillahi actually means only for. Allahi, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, ma, whatever, fi, in, as-samawati, the skies or the heavens, wa and, ma, whatever, fi, in, al-ard, the earth. Wa and kana, he is, Allahu, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, ghaniyan, all rich, free of all needs. Okay, this is one of the attributes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, ghaniyan. He is free of all needs. Hamida, another attribute of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, one always all praiseworthy, the one that's always praised. Wa and lillahi, li, for, only for, Allahi, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, ma, whatever, fi, in, Assamawati, the heavens or the skies, wa and ma, whatever, fi in al earth, the earth, wa kafa, wa and kafa is sufficient, billahi, be definitely or only, Allahi, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, wakila, as a disposer of affairs, as a trustee. This is an attribute of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, wakila. In, if, yasha, he wills. We know that the word sha means to will, and ya in the beginning makes this word, puts this word in the third person tense, so yasha, he wills. Yudhibukum, dhahaba is the root word, and that means to leave or depart. So ya in the beginning means this word is in the third person. So yudhib, he will take away. Kum, all of you. Ayyuha, ayyuha or ayyu, we already learned, means oh. Okay, and it's used to address people. Ayyuha, oh, annasu, the mankind. Wa and yati, he will come. Be with akharin, others. And instead of saying he will come with others, it's better in English, it makes more sense to say he will bring others. So wa yati be, and he will bring akharin, others. Wakana, and he is Allahu, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, ala, upon. Dhalika, that, qadira, always all capable. This is an attribute of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Qadira, always all powerful. Man, whoever, kana, is, yuridu, he wants, or he wishes, thawaba, reward, ad-dunya, the world, or the near, fa, then, inda, near, Allahi, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, thawabu, reward, ad-dunya, the near, or the world, wa and al-akhirah, the hereafter. Wa and kana, he is Allahu, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, sami'an, one always all hearing. Sama'a is the root word, and that means hearing. And sami'an is an attribute of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, always all hearing. Basira, this comes from basara, which means sight. And basira is an attribute of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and it means the one always all seeing. Okay, so basira, one always all seeing. Alhamdulillah. Now we are going to start the tafsir, or the explanation of these ayat. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. We learned earlier about what a man should do when his wife is rebellious and she does nushuz. So the man was told to admonish her and separate from her in bed if needed. Now in ayah number 128, we are going to learn what a woman should do when her husband mistreats her or he is unfair towards her. This happens sometimes when a man is interested in someone else, or he doesn't want to stay with his current wife, or if they just don't get along anymore. Okay, so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us what should be done in those cases. وَإِنِ امْرَأَةٌ خَافَتْ مِنْ بَعْلِهَا نُشُوزًا. And if a woman fears cruelty or desertion from her husband, أو إعرادا, or indifference, meaning that he doesn't give her attention, or he doesn't have any physical relations with her, or he is rude to her, and she feels that he will divorce her. When that happens, she has the option of asking for divorce. But if she doesn't want a divorce, either because she has kids with him, or because she feels that she relies on him completely to get by, she can come up with an agreement with him where she agrees to give up some of her rights just to be able to stay with him. Just so she doesn't have to get a divorce. Okay? These ayat guide people with what to do when couples disagree, or when life becomes so difficult for the two because they just don't get along at all. The Quran guides people so life can be peaceful for both the man and the woman again, because everyone has the right to be at peace and to be content in life. If they're living together in a home, but they feel like they're living in hell, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells them what should be done. Now, the first scenario in Ayah 128, when a woman suspects that her husband will divorce her due to him being indifferent to her or mistreating her. She gets a feeling that he will divorce her, but she doesn't want it to happen. This is what should be done in that case, when she doesn't want a divorce. First, let's go over the example of Sauda radiallahu anhu, who was older, and she felt that Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam might divorce her. So Sauda radiallahu anha requested him not to divorce her because she wanted to be resurrected as his spouse on the Day of Judgment. She wanted to be his wife. So she gave up the day he spent with her. Okay, because he used to divide the time he spent among all his wives. So she gave up that day. And she said that he can spend the day out of the week that he used to spend with her with Aisha radiallahu anha instead of her. But she did not want to be divorced from him. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, فَلَا جُنَاهَ عَلَيْهِمَا أَن يُصْلِحَا بَيْنَهُمَا صُلْحًا. Then there is no blame if both of them agree to reconcile by means of a compromise. Okay, then it's not sinful. Compromising might be that the woman says that she forgoes some rights that she has over him, as long as he doesn't divorce her. Like if she says, for example, that he doesn't have to provide for her financially. Or if she agrees to him marrying a second wife and staying with her. Maybe just spending 1 day a week or 1 day per month with her. Or every other day if that works. But it is all compromising, right? So whatever works for both can be done. Okay, where each party gives and takes. They both compromise on something. Now, it's not only when men are interested in another woman, when the wife might feel the need to compromise. It may be that he doesn't like her anymore, or he's just very different from her. Or maybe that he wants kids and she can't have kids. Or that she's not good to him and doesn't fulfill his due rights. Okay, maybe one of these reasons can be why he wants to divorce her. Whatever the reason may be is not mentioned here in the Quran. Okay, we're just told that she fears aversion from him. When that happens and she doesn't want a divorce, she can compromise so that she can stay with him. And he can marry someone else also if he wants. Now, we learned in Ayah 3 that it's really important to do adl, or to be just and fair. That's what adl means. Okay, to do justice between wives. For a man who isn't fair between his wives, he will be resurrected on the Day of Judgment as someone who is paralyzed on one side. Astaghfirullah. That's what happens when he inclines towards one wife more than the other. So men are told to be just. And here, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala clarifies that if the woman wants to compromise because she doesn't want a divorce, that's fine. Okay? وَالصُّلْحُ خَيْرٌ. And compromise is better. In a situation when a man wants a second wife, he would have ideally treated the first wife well, just as well as the second, right? Along with the second wife. But if it's not possible, and the first one just wants to compromise to make do and just stay with him, There is khair in compromising. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَأُهْدِرَتِ الْأَنفُسُ الشُّحَّ. And human souls are prone to narrow-mindedness. Shuh means greed and stinginess. And because of shuh, everyone wants more. Okay, they want more for themselves. Both sides act narrow-minded in most cases. The man thinks that he shouldn't have to stay with the wife when he doesn't like her anyway. He doesn't want to keep her hanging and just wants to get rid of her. And the woman doesn't want him to have a second wife because she can't tolerate the idea of him being with someone else also while she's still around. She wants all her rights fulfilled and she refuses to compromise. And most of the time, that's how people are. They want all their rights fulfilled, but they're not willing to give the other person their due rights. So they become narrow-minded, and they're not willing to come up with a solution to the problem or compromise. وَإِن تُحْسِنُوا وَتَتَّقُوا فَإِنَّ اللَّهَ كَانَ بِمَا تَعْمَلُونَ خَبِيرًا. But if you show generosity and fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in your dealings, surely Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is well aware of your actions. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells the man to be utmost good in this part. Okay, He has made the man the qawwam, or the caretaker of the family. If the man does utmost good and he compromises, even though he can divorce his wife, he does more good to her than she is entitled to. If the man compromises and does not expel her out of the house and does utmost good and adopts Allah consciousness, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that He knows it and He will reward that man for it. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is trying to make men realize that they should be better because they are responsible for being the qawwam, right? They are the maintainers. So they should act better. And because they're responsible for running the household. And they should watch what they say or do. This is because sometimes men start mistreating their wives when they know that the woman doesn't have anyone else to turn to. And other times, wives start to exploit the man because they know that their kids are the husband's weaknesses, right? That the kids are his weakness. So he's going to want to be able to see the kids. But some women don't let their husband see the kids. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says for both the man and the woman to do ihsan, to do utmost good, because there is khair, there's goodness in reconciliation, in compromising. If things can get better, that is best. Next, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَلَن تَسْتَطِيعُوا أَن تَعْدِلُوا. And it is not possible for you to do justice بَيْنَ النِّسَاءِ, between women. So it's impossible to be just between wives. Now all women remember this part, right, of the ayah, and they say, well, the Quran says that it's not possible for men to do justice between women. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala explains further here. وَلَوْ هَرِسْتُمْ. Even if you wish to do so, it's not possible at all. Men are not capable of doing justice between two wives. Why? Because adl, or justice, doesn't only apply to things that we can see, like how a man provides for the wives in equal ways, or feeding them the same type of food, or spending the same amount of time with each, or spending the same amount of money with each, taking turns equally, so each wife gets the same amount of time with that man, right? And we know that Prophet Muhammad ﷺ used to do that. He used to visit all his wives after Asr prayer to find out how they were. But he spent the night with whoever's turn it was, with one wife at a time. Okay, so whichever one had the turn for that day. But in another way, it's impossible to do adl or be justice. Like when it comes to how much a man loves each wife. The love a person feels for another person, for each other person, is different, right? So the way a man loves one wife may be different from the way he loves the other one. It's not equal. No matter how much they try, men cannot love their wives in an equal way. That's why Prophet Muhammad ﷺ even used to make the dua, "Oh Allah, this is my division of what I am capable of doing." Like when he spent the same amount of time with each wife, right? He tried to divide that time among all the wives, right? So he used to say, "This is my division, and this is what I'm capable of doing." And he said, "Don't seize me for the matters that are not in my control, the matters that are beyond my control." And that meant for whom my heart inclines towards. If the man loves one wife more than the other, either because she is really beautiful or very caring, or he just connects with her better, they understand each other better, he can't control that, even when he tries. Even if he really tries to love and care for the other one, like the one he really loves more and gets along with, it's just not possible, right? So that is understandable. But the man has to be fair between both when it comes to providing a living for them. He can't provide a really good living for one wife and leave the other one struggling. Okay, so when it comes to provisions and spending time with them, he has to be fair. Men will not be held accountable for loving one more than the other because they can't control their feelings. But فَلَا تَمِيلُوا كُلَّ الْمَيْلِ فَتَذَرُوهَا كَالْمُعَلَّقَةِ. Therefore, in order to comply with divine law, with the law of Allah, do not lean towards one wife to the extent that you leave the other one hanging in the air. Now, what does that mean? It means that they don't incline towards one so much that they become so careless about the other, that the man doesn't even know if the first or the second wife even exists anymore. Okay? He cannot do that. He has to stay connected with both. That woman is not considered single because he doesn't divorce her, and she's not living the life of a married woman either because he never visits her. This happens so often nowadays. Okay, this scenario is very common nowadays, where a man marries a second wife and he starts acting like the first one doesn't even exist. He completely ignores her. Islam does not allow that. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that the man cannot do that. He can't give all his attention and time to one wife and only provide financially for her, and the other struggles just to get by and survive. Even when the woman decides to compromise and stays as the wife, as in the scenario we covered in Ayah 128, okay, where she says that you don't have to spend every single day with me, or you don't have to provide for everything for me, okay, for my living, where she just decides to compromise because she just wants to be his wife, right? She says you can take on a second wife, whatever. Even in that case, she cannot be left hanging. That's done through compromise. It's a mutual agreement, right? But she can't be left hanging. It's a matter of compromise. He cannot expect that she compromises on everything and he doesn't even bother to check up on her. That is not allowed in Islam. Even in that situation, she can compromise on certain things, like maybe spending less time with him or taking less money from him for her expenses that he is responsible for, or that he doesn't fulfill all her rights as he does with the new wife. If they have talked about it and agree on it, only then that's okay. he won't be questioned about it because they agreed to it in that case. If that isn't decided upon as part of the agreement, the man will be accountable on the Day of Judgment, and he will be paralyzed on one side since he did not fulfill both wives' due rights equally. Now, if a woman's husband gets married to a second wife and only visits her sometimes, a lot of people wonder if the first wife has to fulfill his rights or not. When he goes to visit her, does she still have to fulfill his rights when he barely ever visits her? That is sometimes very confusing for the first wife. But the answer to that is that the first wife has to fulfill his rights, even if he visits her once a week, because she is still his wife and he's providing for her. She has to do her part. Just because he's doing something wrong doesn't mean she can do that to him as well. Okay, she just has to focus on doing her part. But of course, he will be questioned on the Day of Judgment for not fulfilling her rights. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells men not to incline towards one wife in such a way that the other is left helpless. وَإِن تُصْلِحُوا وَتَتَّقُوا فَإِنَّ اللَّهَ كَانَ غَفُورًا رَحِيمًا. And if you work out a friendly understanding and fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is all forgiving and merciful. If you reform, if you want to fix the situation and fear Allah, He will forgive you and be merciful. If you made a mistake in the past and you weren't just between wives, or you inclined more towards one than the other because you got along with one better, that is a mistake, right? But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will forgive you if you try to fix the situation, as long as you are fair when it comes to everything else, like how you treat the two wives, or the amount of time and money you spend on each. Okay, where, like, for example, you take one out for dinner and you leave the other one, you should try to take the other one out the next day, right? So try to balance. We know that Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam loved Aisha radiallahu anhu the most. He loved Aisha radiallahu anha the most because he couldn't control his feelings, right? But he was fair between all his wives. He treated all of them with love and respect, and spend time with each one of them. وَإِن يَتَفَرَّقَا يُغْنِ اللَّهُ كُلًّا مِّن سَعَتِهِ. وَإِن يَتَفَرَّقَا يُغْنِ اللَّهُ كُلًّا مِّن سَعَتِهِ. And if the spouses do separate, meaning the husband and the wife, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will make each one independent of the other out of His limitless resources. This is a third scenario, where the man and woman just cannot stay together. Their lives have become miserable because they're just miserable together. What should they do? Well, Islam doesn't force two people to stay together their whole lives and suffer just because they committed once. Okay? If they're really unhappy together, they just can't get along, or they keep fighting on a daily basis, and there's no chance of things getting better. The woman doesn't want the man to marry another woman either. There's no chance of compromise whatsoever. What should be done in that situation? If they both part their ways, يُغْنِ اللَّهُ كُلًّا مِّن سَعَتِهِ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will enrich them both from His abundance. He will make them self-sufficient, and He will provide for them both out of His bounty. وَكَانَ اللَّهُ وَاسِعًا حَكِيمًا. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is ample giving. He is wise. His treasures can easily provide for both of them. The woman does not need to worry about how she would be able to provide for herself, how she's going to get by. Allah will make everything work for her. He is the one with all the abundance. He will enrich her, so she won't need to rely on that man anymore. He will take care of the situation. And if the man worries about what would happen if the woman left the house, about who would manage the household, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will enrich him as well. Maybe He will grant that man a better wife, and the first wife a better husband than he was. If they can't fulfill each other's rights, they can separate, they can part ways. And maybe Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will pair them up with more compatible spouses, people who are more like them, so they won't need to depend on each other anymore to get by. This is very important to know, because at times people do not separate, even when things get really bad. Okay? They fight all the time, but they just don't part ways because they're worried about what would happen. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that He will make them independent from His abundance. If the two are not fulfilling each other's rights and they're not compatible, they just can't get along, He will make them free of need from each other. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the all-wise, so He knows that sometimes people need to separate from each other. They're just not meant to be together. That's why He gave them the option to separate if needed. But that's only after they have tried to work things out and they couldn't come up with a solution. When things just don't work. It's due to His infinite wisdom that He allowed people to separate in such cases. وَلِلَّهِ مَا فِي السَّمَاوَاتِ وَمَا فِي الْأَرْضِ. And only to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala belongs all that is in the heavens and in the earth. We talked about His abundance in the last ayah. So this ayah makes us stop to think about how abundant Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala actually is. When everything in the skies and the earth belongs to Him, He can easily enrich both the man and the woman. Right? He can provide for them both without needing each other. وَلَقَدْ وَصَّيْنَا الَّذِينَ أُوتُوا الْكِتَابَ مِنْ قَبْلِكُمْ وَإِيَّاكُمْ. And we surely enjoined those who were given the book before you. And now you also. أَنِ اتَّقُوا اللَّهَ, to fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. In your dealings with one another, fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If people don't fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala when it comes to these matters, it's really easy for them to mess up. Because nobody else sees when the man or woman is being unfair to their spouse, or how they mistreat each other when they're alone. But anyone who fears Allah will not transgress. They won't mess up when they go through such a situation. It's only the fear of Allah that keeps people upright. And it keeps them fair in their dealings with each other, even when the husband and wife are all alone. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us that not only is He directing us, not only are these rules for us, He also directed the people before us in the same way. Okay? The Jews and the Christians and others, everyone who had the book, were all told the same thing. They were enjoined to fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So it's really important to remember this if we want to be fair in our dealings at home. We don't need to be afraid of what people are going to say, what they're going to think. It doesn't matter. Just fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and be conscious of Him. Know that He is watching. وَإِن تَكْفُرُوا, and if you disbelieve, meaning if you disobey and don't fear Allah, you do whatever you want, and you don't follow what he tell you to do in this ayah when you deal with one another, then remember, فَإِنَّ لِلَّهِ مَا فِي السَّمَاوَاتِ وَمَا فِي الْأَرْضِ. Then indeed only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala owns all that is in the heavens and all that is in the earth. Now why is this mentioned? Because if anyone disobeys Allah in this matter, it doesn't make a difference to Allah. But those people only do this at their own risk. They're disobeying Allah. Everything belongs to Him. They don't harm Him in any way when they disobey. They only harm themselves when they don't follow these rules. If they do obey, it's for their own good. وَكَانَ اللَّهُ غَنِيًّا حَمِيدًا. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is self-sufficient, praiseworthy. He is free of all needs. So it doesn't matter to Him if anyone obeys Him or not. He is Hamid. So it doesn't make a difference if anyone praises Him or not. He is all praiseworthy. He is Mahmud. وَلِلَّهِ مَا فِي السَّمَاوَاتِ وَمَا فِي الْأَرْضِ. And yes, to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala belongs all that is in the heavens and in the earth. Subhanallah. This is repeated again. Look up at the sky. Whatever you see belongs to Him. Everything. He controls it all. And whatever you see when you look down around you is also His. Everything in the earth obeys Him. So why do people disobey? There is so much wisdom in this phrase, this reminder that everything in the sky and earth belongs to Him. All the rules for family matters were given by Him. And He is the master of the sky and the earth. He controls the whole universe. And He is the one who gave us these rules. So they're full of wisdom. These family laws were not given by another person. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the master of the universe, teaches us how to keep things going smoothly within the family unit. He runs the whole universe according to His rules, where everything is just perfect. The whole system. Right? It's in perfect harmony. And He's giving us these rules about family life. So if we follow His rules, our lives would go well too. Just like everything else we see around us in the universe, in perfect harmony. How can we disobey Him then? These rules are meant to be the best for us. وَكَفَى بِاللَّهِ وَكِيلًا. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is sufficient as a protector. He is enough as the disposer of affairs for us. He sent this divine revelation, so we should trust Him. He is our trustee. He sent these ayat to fix all our affairs. So we should leave it to Him and then trust Him to take care of all our matters. He will resolve everything. إِن يَشَأْ يُذْهِبْكُمْ أَيُّهَا النَّاسِ. If He wanted, He could destroy you all, O mankind. وَيَأْتِ بِآخَرِينَ. And He could bring others. He does not depend on us for anything. If we disobey, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can replace us with others. Like He did with the people of Ad and the people of Thamud and the people of Lut alayhi salam, who were wiped off of the surface of the earth. He can do the same with us. And this world would go on without us, just as it did without those people. It wasn't hard for Him to get rid of those people. He can do that with us too, if we transgress and bring He can easily bring others in our place. In Surah Muhammad, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, if you turn away, He will bring others in your place who will not be like you. So we should never think that we are important in any way. He doesn't rely on anyone to obey Him or to serve Him. He can take us away if we disobey, and He can bring others who will obey Him happily. All He has to do is say kun, which means be, and it's going to happen. Then it would be as if we never even existed. We would be wiped out just like that. And of course, that's going to be our loss, not His. So many people came before us and they passed. Nobody remembers them for too long. Nobody talks about them. If we are alive right now, it's due to His permission. And that's why we're able to live and do everything that we are doing for now. He warns us that if we don't obey or do things the right way as instructed by Him, He can easily replace us with other people. He admonishes us so we can be upright, so we can reform ourselves. We as individuals sometimes start thinking that we're the ones running everything. And we say it too sometimes to our families at home, as if everything would fall apart if we weren't around. That, oh, I do this and I do that. If I don't watch something for 5 minutes, this is what happens, right? We say things like that. Okay, and we act like we're running the whole household. But we should know that everything keeps going even without us, even if we weren't there. When it's time for our death, everything stays and it goes on just as usual. But it's the people who don't exist anymore. Okay, everything stays as it is. Life goes on, but it's the person who passes away that's gone. So many people have come to this world and they're gone. And this happened with them. And the same thing is going to happen with us. So we should never think that it's going to be the end of the world when I'm gone. It's not going to matter. Everything's going to go on just as it did before. And a lot of times, people start acting like they're doing Allah a favor when they do any work for deen or when they study the Quran. Astaghfirullah. As if Allah needs them to do those things. They should know that it's Allah's favor upon them that He chose them to do His work. Okay? He chose them to do His work, or He chose them to learn His word. That's His favor upon them. Okay? He chose them. He has honored them by letting them do anything good. So they should be thankful for that. Allahu Akbar. Just remember that so many nations were wiped out for their disobedience, for their transgression. And we can be too. وَكَانَ اللَّهُ عَلَى ذَلِكَ قَدِيرًا. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has the power to do so. He is capable of doing everything. Nobody should think that He would not be able to get rid of us because there's just so many of us. Too many people disobeying Him. Or that He wouldn't because we have read the Shahada. He is not weak like us. So numbers do not matter to Him. He can easily replace all of us with others who will obey Him. It doesn't matter how many people may be disobeying Him. Even if there's a lot, He can easily replace them. He can do as He wills. And nobody can stop Him. He is the only one who has the power to do whatever He wills. مَا كَانَ يُرِيدُ ثَوَابَ الدُّنْيَا. Anyone who desires the reward of this world. Now this means anyone who wants the reward for anything good they do here in this life will be granted it. And anyone who wants the reward in the hereafter as well will be given that reward. Shaitan tries to make people's good deeds go to waste by making them do things just for this life, just for this temporary life of the near. Many people only ask for the goodness of this world. Even when they go for Hajj, they pray for the goodness of this world. Or when they pray the Hajjat, or when they fast in Ramadan, this is all they make dua for. They only want the best of this life and ask Allah for blessings here, for this temporary life. But people who only focus on this life are short-sighted, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that anyone who desires the reward of this world should know that فَعِنْدَ اللَّهِ ثَوَابَ الدُّنْيَا وَالْآخِرَةِ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala possesses the rewards of both this world and the hereafter. Nothing is difficult for Him. He can reward people for both. So why ask Him for something so small? Something that's only for this life, so temporary, when you can ask for both? Because that's like going to the ocean and just taking a drop of water when you can have much, much more. We should ask for the best of this world and the hereafter, instead of just asking for the reward of what we do here. And if we think about it, if we are rewarded for the good we do in this life only, if we were only to get the reward here, even if we get the whole world as the reward, that's still equivalent to the wing of a mosquito compared to the hereafter. So does it really matter if we get it or not? And we know that it's not possible to get all the goodness of this world anyway, right? We've never seen anybody get all the good of this world. So of course it's even less valuable than the wing of a mosquito, because the whole world is compared in hadith to the wing of a mosquito. All the goodness of the world, all the blessings. So when we have less than that, it's much less. So we should always ask for both the goodness of this world and the hereafter. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told us in Surah Al-Baqarah that there are people who ask for the goodness of this world only. They don't have a share in the hereafter. And He said there are others who ask for the goodness of this world and the hereafter, and they ask to be protected against the punishment of the hellfire. They will be granted all those things. So it's only sensible for us to ask for goodness of both, not just this life. But we should keep in mind that we should ask for the goodness of dunya, according to the time we will live here. There's nothing wrong with asking for goodness here, but that shouldn't be all we ask for. Okay, keep in mind that we're only going to be here temporarily. So we should only bother that much about this dunya and ask a lot more for the goodness of the hereafter, because that is where we will live eternally. In Surah Shura, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, whoever intends the goodness of the hereafter, we will increase his or her investment. And whoever intends something for this world, we will give them of it, some of it. But there won't be any share for him or her in the hereafter. So if people don't aim for goodness or reward in the hereafter, they won't get it. A lot of times when people are asked why they study the Quran, They say that they want to be able to answer their kids' questions when they ask them questions about Islam. They don't want to feel embarrassed when they don't know how to answer their kids when they ask them about Islam. And that's the reason they study the word of Allah, just so they don't have to go through that embarrassment of not knowing how to answer them, just to satisfy their children and appear knowledgeable before them. Astaghfirullah. Is that the reason why we should be studying the Quran though? They should in fact be learning to benefit their lives in this world and the hereafter, to seek that reward that will benefit them in this life and their eternal lives in the hereafter. Not just so they can answer people's questions properly. We should want to be rewarded for studying the Quran. Okay, we should pray for that reward and aim to reform ourselves and implement what we learn. That is the purpose of learning, because only that will lead to success in the hereafter. We should make dua to be able to implement what we learn. That's what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants us to do. We can't think that we will be granted the goodness of the hereafter when we only work to get the goodness of this life. If we're not working for it, how can we seek that reward? How can we hope for it? So ask for both, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can give us both. The dunya, which just means the near, but of course that's important too, because we live here. And we can't, as humans, we were created weak, so we want goodness here too. We can't tolerate being put through difficulties for too long. Okay, so we should ask for the goodness of dunya and the hereafter. The Sahaba worked really hard to be successful in the hereafter, and that's why they were able to do such great work, because they were so focused, they were patient. But most people want everything here in this life. They want to be rewarded quickly for their efforts. They don't want to wait. But we should remember that we will only get as much of the goodness of this life as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has decreed for us, as He has destined for us. But we can work to get more in the hereafter. We can work harder to attain more, higher levels. We must strive to do our best to be rewarded with the blessings there, because each level is going to be much better than the level below it. However, most of us do the exact opposite. We aim for the best in this life, and we're willing to put in all the work that we need to put in, but we leave the hereafter as if we will only get what Allah has destined for us. When that's not true, we can work to improve our eternal lives. وَكَانَ اللَّهُ سَمِيعًا بَصِيرًا. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is one always all hearing and always all seeing. He hears what people ask for when they invoke Him, and He sees what they're doing. He knows if they are actually making the effort and working to get what they ask for, or just saying it and not even working towards it. In Surah Isra, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, whoever wants the benefit of this world that reaches them quickly will get as much of it as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants to give them. So even the goodness of this life won't be according to how much you want. It's according to what He has destined for you. What Allah has decreed for us is all we're going to get here. Okay, we must remember that. Just work for it, and then just make dua and leave it to Allah and be satisfied with His division. But for the hereafter, we can work hard to attain more, to get to higher levels. because that is our eternal lives that we're talking about. Each good deed is going to make a lot of a difference there. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgive our sins and shortcomings. And may He grant us the ability to implement these ayat. May He enable us to always remember, وَلِلَّهِ مَا فِي السَّمَاوَاتِ وَمَا فِي الْأَرْضِ. Only to Allah belong the heavens and the earth, because that can make it possible for us to obey Him when we keep that in mind. Aameen. Ya Rabbal Alameen. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك ربنا تقبل منا إنك أنت السميع العليم وتب علينا إنك أنت التواب الرحيم آمين يا رب العالمين. جزاكم الله خيرا كثيرا. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.